We're learning Bava Kama Daf. Today's daf is daf Pei Aleph, and an interesting Gemara that Yeshua, when they entered Eretz Yisrael, he put in to train a number of laws about now they have to live like a community, and he has to make regulations that people have to learn to live together and to be prepared to forego certain rights for the betterment of the community at large. There's an argument whether this was conditional on the distribution of Eretz Yisrael. So look, I'm dividing Eretz Yisrael, but it'll be based on the following conditions. This is how everyone has to accept, or is it a din and hefker, bezin hefker? That Yeshua was the bezdin, and the bezdin has the right to legislate and to say whether you like it or not. This is how it is. And the difference between these two approaches are: is it only limited to Eretz Yisrael, or does it apply in any Jewish community around the world? Like Bava, which is just like we learned yesterday, that Bava is treated like Eretz Yisrael. But here too, maybe the same thing. We'll see in the Gemara that perhaps it applies even outside of Kisakot to some. And that's the argument, whether it's a din in Chalukas Eretz Yisrael or whether it's Hefker Bez Hefker. Tara we learned. Asara Tanoin Hisni Yeshua. Yeshua put into place 10 different conditions that everyone has to agree with these conditions. Number one, Shiemarin Bechorshin. Number one is that animals can go around, and the Gemara first will tell us what these 10 Tanoim are, and then we're going to explain each one in more detail. But animals can go wander around and graze in other people's forests. And the owner of the forest, if there's a private owner, is not going to care. Number one. Number two, Melaktin eitzin beside the same. If you see in somebody else's field a pile of wood, you're allowed to collect that wood and take it. Or you see a pile of grass, you can take some like hay for your animal. Bechol makom. Sorry, Melaktin eitzin beside. Umelaktin ma'asav bechol. You're allowed to collect grass wherever it is in order, let's say, hay to feed your animal. Chutz, the only grass you cannot collect is metilson. If the grass is growing next to fenugreek, which is a kind of legume, you cannot take that grass because that grass is needed to support the fenugreek, the growth of the fenugreek. So you can't take that. And Gemara will explain each one in more detail. And the next one is because if you do take the grass, remove the grass, you're actually adversely affecting the fenugreek and you're causing damage to the owner. If I see branches in the early stages, nothing is budding yet, just a branch. That the branch itself will just grow. I can cut them off from someone else's tree and use it for myself. Let's say I want to take this branch and I want to plant a new tree, that kind of species, or graft it onto an existing tree. And the owner of the tree is not going to care because this branch is a small branch of a shoot that just came out, nothing growing there. Chutz, except Grov Yeshel Zayitz. If you're going to let's say you cut down an olive, let's say an olive tree, you have to leave 2 fistfuls, I guess, of the tree itself, of the olive, so it can regenerate. Again, we'll explain that soon. If you have a spring of water that appeared, or it definitely was there for a while, a spring of water that just appeared. Taisus gives 2 different explanations, one here and one another Masechta. Over here, Taisus says that it's talking about a case here that you didn't put any effort into. One place it says you didn't put any effort in creating that spring; it just suddenly appeared. Then it belongs to everybody. Anybody can come and use the water from that spring. But if you worked hard you dug bores in the ground and the spring appeared, then it's your spring. Another shot Taisus gives is that if the spring is sitting on your land and not traveling beyond your land, it's yours. But if the spring travels beyond your land, then it belongs. You can't block it up and say it's mine. It belongs to everybody. B'nei ha'im mistapkim, and everybody in the city can enjoy it. Next thing is everyone is allowed to put nets and catch fish in the Yam of Tveria, even though Tveria belongs to Naphtali. Everyone else says boom, but here's Algamor says Naphtali. Everybody can enjoy that water. The yamas, you shouldn't put a kela and hold back ships. I mean, you don't put in posts in the ground and then put a wall, because that will prevent ships from sailing. Or others say means don't put a ship there. Don't put these giant nets that are attached to ships, because it will take away too much fish and it's not fair. We have to have enough stock for everyone. Just similar to what happens now in a lot of countries. They're very, very particular about the fishing, what's going on here. And this includes the owner as well. The nifnin la hageden. If someone has to go to the bathroom and defecate, he can go behind someone's private fence, and the Gemara will explain, he can even take a pebble from the wall and use it to cleanse themselves, because that's how they used to clean themselves in those days, and then put it back in the wall. Even if the field has a saffron, which is so expensive, nevertheless, like $20,000 a kilo or something today. Nevertheless, you can take from their wall, because it's not causing any damage. But as the Mefarshim say, only small little rocks. Otherwise, you're causing damage to the fence itself. You're allowed to walk b'shvilei harashos. That means here, once the owner of the farm brought in the harvest, and he's not planning to plant anything for a while, then the people in the street are allowed to walk onto the I guess the farmland at the edge, because it's not going to make a difference anyway. Until the rain season comes in, which is when the things start to grow, then you're not allowed to go there anymore. You're doing it as a shortcut. You're allowed to use it as a shortcut, and the owners had to make the fields hefker to allow everybody to go in and use it as a shortcut. It's called Shvile Rishus, the access ways for the public.
That's Sukkot time is when they bring stuff in, or
if that's what it is, whatever it was. Yeah. Yeah. Yud Zayin Tammuz is when the rain season for this one is. Remember, we learned the different stages of rain season. This one here is Yud, not Gimel Cheshvan or Zayin Cheshvan. This is Yud Zayin Cheshvan. So you have a month. Throughout the year, forget about the rain season. Throughout the year, you're allowed to go on the sides of the road, even when they are, the farms are growing and the fields are full of whatever it is, crop. You're allowed to walk on the edges near the main road, because everybody's mafked that edge over there. Now, what you say is hadrachim. In the winter, everything is very muddy. So people walking, they sort of press down, and you suddenly find that you press down one part, the mud rises next to it. And in the summer, when it dries, suddenly you have all of these mounds, and it's hard to walk. So someone has to walk around it. And right next to it, contiguous to the road, is the edge of somebody's field. So Yeshua made it conditional that the edges of fields next to a road that abuts a road belongs to the public. Because it easy to say this. The Hatoya ben Akram, somebody's lost in the vineyards and he can't see his way out. Mafsig va'olam mafsig v'yed. He's allowed to cut his way through. You're allowed to go and cut your way through the vines to be able to find a direction for him to be able to help him leave. The last thing is, if somebody dies, a meis mitzvah that has no relatives to take care of him, is wherever he dies, that's in somebody's private field, that's where you make his grave. Okay, now the Gemara will go through each one in more detail. Says the Gemara, and the owner of the field can't stop him. And you said you're allowed to go to the forest. Let's qualify that. Well, a goat, a sheep going into a thick forest, so he's not going to cause any damage. If you have a very thin forest, and goats also eat a lot, or begasa, or a cow and something else got a loy. Having a cow go into somebody's very, I guess, limited forest and very thin, is obviously it's going to have a negative effect at the light. You don't. Next. You're allowed to take wood from somebody's field for firewood and say, we're talking about thorns, which aren't worth much, number one. Other wood, no, because that guy the owner of the field might want the wood. Number two, I feel even thorns, still attached. If the owner of the field cut off these thorns, then he might want to use it for fire. And no, even if it's attached. If it's moist, so he can't use it as firewood yet anyway. So therefore you can take it. I will be vicious, it's already dry, which means the owner soon will come and cut it off himself. So only if it's thorns, if it's mechuber, if it's attached, and it's moist. Or bevad shelo yesharis. You shouldn't pull them out from the ground with the roots because then you're actually causing damage as well. So further, malakti. You're allowed to take grass from anywhere you want, except if there's fenugreek there. Remember the tilsum malul asavim. You tell me what that fenugreek is good for the grass. That grass supports fenugreek, and that's why you should take the grass next to the fenugreek. But I mean, as a question, it says clearly that tilson should also imini asavim. If you have fenugreek growing with different kinds of grass, and the question is whether it's climb or not. You don't have to worry about climb and remove them. You know why? The reason why you don't have to worry about removing them is because you're going to take it away anyway. You're going to take it away anyway because it's bad for the fenugreek, and eventually you're going to take away, and therefore there's no benefit. So a minute ago you said, so in the Mishnah it says here that grass does not benefit the fenugreek. Therefore, you definitely take it away, so you don't want it to grow there. And yet we just said in the Yeshua's takana was that you must leave the grass there next to the fenugreek because it supports the fenugreek. So we have two answers in the Gemara. Like Can if the fenugreek is lizetta, you're planting for seeds. If you, let's say, your reason why you want to replant it, and use the seeds, then the grass is bad for it because the grass takes away some of the nutrients. Because you're competing for the same nutrient, it's bad for it. But can lizidin. If you're just using it as food and not planning to replant it again, then the grass actually supports it. Lizetta koshla something the machashale because the weakness it takes away the nutrients. Lizidin ma'ila. And why is it, what's the mile? What's the benefit having grass growing next to fenugreek? The keeps it moist and soft. So there's an advantage. So it depends what the purpose is. Or you buy another answer. Similarly, it depends on the purposes. Can la adam can la behemoth. For a person, grass is bad for fenugreek. But if you're going to use it for fodder, then grass is good. You know why? Because the animal eats both the grass and the fenugreek. They give him the behemoth. He eats grass as well. The only question then is, so why only fenugreek? Anything growing, you should allow the grass next to it for behemoth because behemoth uses both. You shouldn't touch the grass because the grass benefits. Why highlight fenugreek? I don't know. Unless the grass that grows next to fenugreek has a special taste to it, the animals like it. I don't know. How in the world do I know if I walk into a field and I see fenugreek and grass? How do I know I cannot take this grass because this is going to be what the purpose is? I mean, you can tell. You know how you can tell? Depends how much time and effort the guy puts in to grow. If it's like a straight line, then he's planning. He's growing it for people, human consumption. Just ungepatchkid, it's all over the place. Then the behemoth. Then it's for behemoth. You can cut off the young sapling, not even sapling, the branches, except when it comes by an olive tree, the last two fistfuls. They explain what is that. Is how much do you have to leave by an olive tree? The size of an egg, the height of an egg from the ground or from the trunk of the tree. You have to let the branch grow, and the rest you can cut off. And bekanim and reeds, bekanim and vines, minapokulam is a nut. Like a growing there. You see, there's a nut there, and you cannot cut below that nut. What about shar? Shar the tree. Min ubay shel ilan. You can cut from the ubay shel ilan, either from the trunk of the tree, or it means there's a part where there's very, very, very thick. There's a lot of branches mixed together. From there, beyond that, that's the bulk of the tree. And beyond that, you can cut the branches that new branches that are growing. Not from the trunk itself. We're only allowing you to cut off these new shoots that haven't yet started to produce fruits. Not from an old branch that even though it's beyond these points, if it's growing fruit, you're not allowed to cut it off and take it off. And the makom she'ein reis chama, even those new branches, only the part that doesn't see the sun, so it doesn't really have a potential to really grow well. But the branches that actually see the sun, no. Shenemer says, from the tfuas grow well from the sun. So therefore, you're robbing this person from that potential. Then it says, in my age, if a spring came out on its own. But then if I meant everyone says the right to take from it. Rabbi said, you know what? But you should pay the guy money. But less hilchas kavasa. That wasn't the t'nai of your Yeshua or hefker ben hefker. He says free for everyone. You're allowed to go ahead and fish, but you don't put in these fixed posts with a fixed net. The Yaman and also holds back. Why? Because it holds back ships from going through there. Aval tzadhu, but you definitely can go ahead and use fish. Tzadhu b'rashas or mechmaris, but you're allowed to use regular nets and fishing rods and all that. Don't know I learned, but he's showing in the beginning. Hisnu shvatim the Brisa says it wasn't Yehoshua, it was the shvatim when they started to subdivide the land. They said they made up some arrangements between themselves. So Yifresh clear the Yam B'dasrina. You can use it for you, but don't put these fixed nets down. But you, on your own, you can do whatever you want. Come and learn. Whose section was it? It was actually in the chelik of Naphtali. Not only that, everyone else now has a right to go to try and fish, but they gave a compensation to Naphtali that they gave him a little section south of the Tveria on the land so that he should have where to put his provisions down and so on and so forth. The Kaim is number the Kaim Yam the Dorim Yeresha that he yashin not only the Yam but also Dorim the south of it as well. Those parts you find branches lying around on the mountains. The Cheska Kosh, everyone has a right to it. But those trees is the Cheska Shevet. It's on top of a mountain belongs to that Shevet. No, the Shvatim didn't only get the flat land; they also got the mountains, the hills, the valleys, and so on. Doesn't have a section in the partition of Eretz on these hills. Ubeshvela on the flatland, Uba Negev. Negev, Rashi says that why is it called Negev? Is because Negev is from the word dry. And there's no trees there and the sun is constantly baking. That's called Negev. So like everyone has a little bit of desert, it's so full of desert. Uva Emek. Emek is valleys. Remember, but then it says that the Gemara is a pasuk, Penuvas Ulachem, go and travel. Uva Hadamaydi, go to the mountain of Kosh Chenav and go to his neighbors, Ba'arova, Bahar in the hills, Bashfoila, the lowlands, Uva Negev. But instead of the Emek, it says of a Chayfa Yam. So either everyone has a section of the beach, because the beach is an important thing, and maybe Emek means Chayfa Yam. I'm not sure exactly how word Emek means Chayfa Yam, but maybe that's what that's alluding to here. They themselves, the nations that you are conquering, had the same thing. The mighty nation, they had the same thing. But not everyone, some people are inland. Not everyone is Chayfayam. So for whatever reason, Chayfayam was not distributed equally to everybody. Or maybe they got Shvela, they got in place of Chayfayam. Yeah. Even though it's full of saffron. So what do you mean you're allowed to use a fence? You're allowed to take a pebble from the wall. Even though it's muksa, but covered abrius is deiche. Mazutra Chasida, Shokil, he would take a stone and put it back. He said to the guy by Zil Sharkid, now I want you to put it back. He said, so what do you say? The Chassidus was not just putting it back. He then told him, put cement on it. It should be permanent. It shouldn't, I didn't, I don't want to, I bore a little hole of it. I don't want to cause any damage. You're allowed to travel down, you're allowed to walk on these access ways that have permission until the rain season. I'm going to pop a high deep done. But our field, he says here, I feel towel, even do when at night, kosher people walk around in the morning, but no, we shouldn't be doing it because we will ruin the field, even though it's not the rain season yet. Even before the rain season, if we're walking on the field, we're trampling, we're ruining their field, they won't grow properly. Let's see the drachim, they say the drachim, you masalik to say drachim because you say this drachim, right? That if these during the winter everything is muddy, and then in the summer these mud come clots and hills and mountains, makes it ready for the walk. So you're allowed to walk on the edge of the people's properties that are abutting the main road, because that was part of the conditions Yeshua said. It's public access ways. So if you never talked about it before, the ones going, having missed out like Shmuel went on the side road, on the people's edge of the fields. The Noyin Shehisni Yeshua filled with bubble. We're in bubble now. Are we allowed to do that? We have permission. It's a private property. I'm the Sherem. I feel the chutzlar. What was the question? So that's the question. When Yeshua made the thing, the partition was a din in chalukas haaretz. That's how it should be. Or was it because of hefker bez and hefker? That was the question. And Shmuel answered in the back. It's hefker bez and hefker, so it applies to bubble just as well. Rebbe ended up here. Havishakli ba'ozli ba'ucha. Once traveling on the road, istalkul tzidi hadrachim, and they walked on these people's private properties. Had a kamafsiya va'ozla Rabbi Yehuda ben Krusa. There was an Amayda called Rabbi Yehuda ben Krusa, who he jumped over these mounds. He did not want to go. He didn't feel comfortable walking on somebody else's property, so he jumped over these mounds. He was being very frum. Kamayu in front of them. Who in the world is this guy? He has the chutzpah shemada. He's showing, demonstrating in public that he's more frum than Rebbe, who was the Nasi at Rabchia, who was an unbelievable murder. Shema Rabbi Yehuda ben Krusa Talmidi, who maybe it's Rabbi Yehuda ben Krusa, my student. The Chomas al Sheshamayim. He's doing it for this. He's not doing it to show off. When they came to Chazi, they saw Taka was him. Amalei, he loved Yehuda ben Krusa. If he wouldn't have been this, no, but if he didn't do Sheshamayim, Gazartinu l'shacha begizer the parzla. We would have hit you there with a stake, and we would have put you in Chayrim. Now, why would they put him in Chayrim? So some say because showing off that you're greater deserves Chayrim. Others say, where do you find such a person? It's a bad thing to be a show off. It's called Mechzik Yeda sometimes. But where do you say you put people in Chayrim? So others say the pshat here is he's a Talmud and he's showing up his Rebbes. Because right behind him was the Rebbe Nabchi, and he's showing that he's more. So that's a bizayin of a Rebbe. That's what the Chayrim was going to be about. Not because he was Mechzik Yeda. But if you learn the Pashup Pshat the Gemara, Rabbi Chia said, maybe this is my son, my Talmud, which means he couldn't really tell. You know, it means he was far away. And he was in front of them. So the Pashas, he had no idea they were behind him. Pashas had no idea it was behind him, because even those who were behind him couldn't really tell it until they, as the Gemara said, when they met each other. So this is my Talmud. So therefore, you have to understand a little bit. So what was the Chayrim for? It wasn't that he was Mavaza his Rebbe, because he had no idea that was behind him. And he wasn't in any way trying to show off to his Rebbes. He had no idea they were there. So it was really more for the fact that he was being very frum in public. And Shlomo Melech said in Kehelas, Al Tehi Tzaddik Harga. You want to be a tzaddik, great, but don't have to show off to the whole world. I'll tell you, there's a beautiful medrash on that. I'll just share with you a medrash. There's a person who was on his deathbed. So he tells his son, I will give you a piece of advice. If you ever see anybody very frum and making sure that the whole world knows about it, be choshed that the guy actually is just a veneer, a facade. That was his advice. Anyway, married, he had a business, everything's going well. And he used to travel a lot. He was in jewelry and he had to travel a lot. So one day he was going for a long time. He said to his wife, why don't you come and join me? We'll go together. And she said, it's not sneezik for me to go with you to a faraway country. People might, suspect whatever that I'm not your wife. And then suddenly he remembered his father's words. So he said, okay, I'll go on my own. That night he didn't go anywhere. He hung around. He comes back at night, and sure enough, there was somebody else in the house. They saw him, they beat him to a pulp. Or that guy beat him to a pulp, and he couldn't stay in the house anymore. So he went out to the park, had to go to sleep, and he slept on a bark bench. Boom, that night, the gem of the crown, of the king's crown, was stolen. So the police went scouring everywhere, and they see this guy lying on the park bench. So they accused him. Well, they thought he was a possibility. And then the head Galach came along and said, yeah, definitely this guy is the one who stole the gem. So they sentenced him to death. And because of sentenced him to death, he was going to go be escorted by the head priest to do his confessions and be read his last rites and all that. Even though he was a Yid, this was appointed by the government. So as they were walking to the gallows, he's walking on the grass and the galach is walking on the concrete. And the galach says, how can you walk on the grass? You know how many little grasshoppers you're killing as you're walking? Suddenly you're going to alert of his father. He turns around to one of the henchmen, the executioner, and he says to the guy, I want to make a confession, but only in front of the king. Because I want to tell him where the gem is. So they said, okay, that's taken back to the king. And the king said, okay, where's the gem? He turns to the galach and says, it's in his house. because he was my partner. So they detained the Galach. They went to the house. Sure enough, they found the gem there. And then the Galach said, "So how in the world did you know we're not partners?" He said, "Al tahid sadig har." You can be proof as you want, but if you show the whole world, then we know there's something not right. So that's what the chayd in here was possibly. Anyway, taking on further. Um, Hatoya ben Akramim, if somebody gets lost amongst the vineyards, massive, you can cut your way through to save the person. Tana we learn. If you see your friend getting lost, you can cut your way through the vines, so you're causing a little bit of damage, but you can do that. You bring him to the city, or the road. Who should if the guy himself is lost, you yourself are lost. You can cut your way through, find your way. Now, it's very odd. You're allowed to do it for your friend. Why do you have to tell me I'm allowed to do it for myself? So what do you mean? And also, why should it be different? No. If your friend is lost, but you know the way, so you can cut very few branches because you know exactly which direction to go. But if you're the one who's lost, you have no idea is it to the north, the south, the west, the east. You're going to be cutting branches everywhere, causing a lot more damage. Who the yada you know which way to go. The nifsa the yada. You don't know which way to go. Maybe like nifsik. Now, how did Neder go around the Vanya, even though it's longer, much longer route, but that's how you should find your way. Come shalom, that you can cut your way through. So here we see again that you can um, save yourself with someone else's money. That's what we're allowing you to do. But on the other hand, this is a condition of Yeshua, so you're not really saving yourself because everyone agreed that that's how it should be a Michael. This is a very important Gemara. Who says the Gemara, isn't it Mahat I need Yeshua to tell me that I can cut your way through. I have to save you. The time you learned Hashavas Gufim and Nine, we know Hashavas Aveda. How knows a mitzvah to help another person out? If he's drowning, how knows a mitzvah to help him out? So sometimes we say like Samar Damriach, as Rashi says in Chumash. The Gemara says that what is a mitzvah to return himself to himself. From here we learn now there's a mitzvah to help somebody and support them if they're in trouble. So that I so what's Yeshua adding? Gemara says the haraisu the koibe mitzvah that mahatoida he can walk around the boundaries. Also talking the mafsik by the mafsik. He was saying even though you could, there's an alternative way. I'm allowing you to cut your way through. So the Rambam says, you have to take care, help somebody else out. You have to take care, the damage of goof. You have to take care of your goof and all that. They say you learn that from here. They said from learn that from here from the Hashavas. If a mitzvah Hashavas Aveda, now I'll never from Mitzvah as well. There's a mitzvah Hashavas Aveda, and there surely is a mitzvah of Hashavas Haguf, and this mitzvah Hashavas Haguf. Oh, it's from Hashavas Aveda. When you return the opposite, it says eventually it says that you don't know who your guy is. Take it home, and when you find him, you should return to him. So it means he should return himself to himself as well. Talking about it further, mace. Let me ask a question. I might say mace. We found the mace lying on the main street. Then you could either bury him to the right or the left. You just told me that you're says you go either to the right or you go to the left, and then goes further. Rashi, I'm here 16 amas. What's the relevance right now here to tell us what the width of a Shusarabim is? We have a Shusarabim all over the place. Anyway, today, now you have two sides, right? I have a choice. Now the Gemara will go through each side. You want to try to minimize the impact. So today, but let's say you have one field that is nothing there, empty, not growing, and it's day near. You have another one that is prepared for plowing. Then which one obviously going to cause a bigger damage to if you place it in stay near? So stay near is day zera. You have a field that's been plowed over. No, you didn't plant yet, but you already plowed through it, and you have another field that you already put the seeds in. Then mefanel is day near. Obviously, where's the less impact in this day near? How you stay in Buddha, stay in Buddha, stay in Anita, stay in Zera. They're both exactly the same. The fanel then it's your prerogative. Choose whatever you want. And the balabos of either one can't say, "Oh, go to the other guy." But that's the condition we made. So the question is, you just said koyin and but here we're taking away. You're right. Even the Shazabim would bury him. You know what we're talking about here? The mutal al hamet that he's lying the width of the Shazabim, and because he's lying the width of the Shazabim, and people walk over him who make tadas, koyin, Very difficult to understand. You just said that Rashi that is 16 amas wide. Which person is 16 amas long? A person is 4 amas. Rashi takes including the head, without including the head. So if a person is 4 amas, why can't they bury Mishra on the street and mark it off? Unless they're saying that even 4 amas is such a wide area and people don't necessarily look all down all the time. They won't understand the markings over time and get erased. So therefore they're worried. Maybe. But if it's been lengthwise, then it's only an amma wide, then they can deal with it. Maybe. Maybe. Something about it further. Amri Asara, you say there's 10. Chatzem, you count, there's actually 11. And so Mahalch Shleima Amra. We Shleima said it. Question was Shleima made a special takana, or you just had a general rule and we apply that rule. What's the story? Because time you learned how did you call it? Let's say you took away your crop. And you don't need you're not going to go to the field till the rain season. You don't let people come in. What do people say? All of on this. People will talk about you and denounce you. What do you benefit by not letting people go in your land? Mazik is like what's his? It's like all of our kosav aimer on him. The pasuk says, "I'll tikira." If you're going to be good, why have to be bad? Says the Gemara. Interesting. You never find this. Where do you find the pasuk? In ksiv ki gavna. So this is very important. The Gemara starts off saying, "Here's a pasuk." All of hakosav. Then the Gemara, first time that we saw the Gemara says no such pasuk. The Gemara says you're right, but the gist of the pasuk, the theme of that pasuk, we find elsewhere because it says, "My mother said, Al timna toiv ve'baila." Do not deny good from these people. If you have the ability to help somebody out, why not? So this might be a key to a lot of psukim that we have, and we said yesterday, collect them all, psukim that are not correct, because it's more the theme of the pasuk. Right here we have an example of that. Some want to say that this is the basis for what we had in the beginning, Bava Kama, second page, that I have a no, you have nothing to lose, I can go into your field, I don't have to pay you. Because could go into kaif in the middle of the day. Why not? What's the basis? So some people wanted to say there, but others say right here. I'll team the time by love. What like people will talk. What do you have to lose? Anyway, there's only 10. But I'll give you a few other example cases. When people take out all their rubbish. You can take it into the street with sober and kosher. You can leave it there for 30 days. Then people should step on it and turn it into fertilizer. Now this language here, is after this is what Shmuel told us. That this is a condition in partitioned land. Yet Shmuel said it's also bubble. So it seems, so that's Shmuel told us. That's what I the question. So it seems that that there's a machlekes. Is this a din of chalukas haaretz? Then it's only limited to Israel, or is this in hefker ben hefker? Then it's everywhere. Look what he says. Look at the wording here. He said Manaske. Another one. Tanai Bezenhu. She has a yoybe the texada chaveda the koitzet shoyche shel chaveda lahatz in the chil shaloi. I have my bees. My bees went and all ran away. You know the problem of bees, shortage of bees. They all flew and went and landed on some branch of the other person's yard. I can go in there and cut the branch down and bring it back to me, and I have to and even though it caused you a little bit of loss. But this was tonight. The noise like I caused you target damage. I have to pay you. I'm not talking about there was condition there before, nothing's growing. It could be growing, but my bees are there, and bees are important. They cross pollinate. We need them, and all the other reasons. You can cut it off. But here it says tonight bezin. So you see here, one guy looks at it as this is Hinchel Yeshua. The other one says tonight bezin. So if tonight bezin means some later date, then what's the most question? This is usual. We're talking about Yeshua here. And you're telling me a Maisa that Bezin later on came along and made certain conditions. So that means this is how we understood Yeshua. It was a Tanai Bezin. In other words, it's like Hefker Bezin Hefker. So we see here that there's an argument actually amongst the Tanaim. And that was quite the discussion between Rabbi Yehuda and Shmuel. But tonight, another Tanai Bezin is, we had Sheifich Yenoi Umatzel Devshana Shel Chaveiroi. that if you wine was less expensive than honey, and if your honey barrel was breaking and the honey was dripping out, and pour my wine out, I capture your honey, and you have to reimburse me the value of my wine, and you take it out from the honey. Now, actually, we had the Gemara before in the third page, and we'll have it later. That if I pour out my wine and I go ahead and I save your honey, all you have to pay me for is my time, not for my wine. So the Shem already asked, what's the difference? It says here and others. So one of the answers is the difference if I did it on my own or you told me to. If I did it on my own, you never asked me to, then all I can charge you for is my time. But if you told me, get rid of your wine, I need your barrel here for my honey, then you have to reimburse me for my wine. But tonight, another tonight business is my donkey is carrying wood, your donkey is carrying flax. Flax is worth a lot more than wood, and then your donkey died on you. So you could tell me, get rid of all your wood, take my flax, and he reimbursed me for the wood that I lost. I'm asking here, look what he says here. It doesn't say tonight bezin. He says here, amanas. Cain. So again, is he saying? But he also said tonight bezin. Sorry. Oh, that's true. But it's also true. But he said that he started tonight bezin and he can finish up amanas Cain, which means he's explaining how Yeshua did it. That Yeshua was a case of tonight bezin, which is hefker bezin hefker. Anyway, why don't we mention this? We don't talk about individual people. We don't talk about the brisa that has no names, anonymous. So everyone agrees. Maybe we argue about these dinim. In fact, someone sort of trying to say the reason why before we learned that for the wine you only get reimbursed your time because we argue on these dinim here. I'll just finish this thing here. If my tree is overhanging your property, some of the was right next to the boundary. Maybe the koile, and therefore it's taking some of the nutrients of your property, and it's your property, and it's growing, it's taking nutrients of your property, yet I can bring the kurim and I can say, because this is part of Tanai Bezin, that if my tree grows and it's overhanging a little bit yours, I can as if you're foregoing that section of your property for me. The kodesh, I'm asking and why don't we mention this one here? Here. Elaman Tana Sora Tunoin. In fact, that bright that we said there were 10 conditions. Shehisna Yeshua, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. It was actually Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So it wasn't a Braisa or a Mishnah. It's Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi who said it. And he's an Amoida. And Rabbi Yechon argues. And these are arguments. Rabbi Yechon, he said, no, there's another one, there's the 11th one. So the other one we said, but this Rabbi Yechon argues, he said there's another thing there about the tree. You can say, oh, this is a Satali. We'll stop picking tomorrow, Mr. Shem. Have a good day.
Thanks. Can I just ask, in that last bit where the 3 branches are growing over, and you said you can have bikurim, are you referring that the owner of the tree can use bikurim from those branches, or the land person?
No, the owner of the tree. The owner of the tree can use them. Not the owner of the land. The owner of the tree.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow.